Alrighty then, this is a new segment as of a couple of weeks ago that may help shed a little light on the panelists that join us here on the Flipside each week. Some of our viewers have been curious as to the personal likes and dislikes of our panelists. Ashley, are you ready for this one? The first question's coming to you.
Okay.
Who is the most interesting person you have ever met?
Well, stop, Ashley, stop.
Bob Bucci. You know, honestly, the most interesting person that I ever met was my grandmother.
Okay.
And I say that because when she was on her deathbed, she told me all kinds of stuff about what her life was all about that as a kid I never knew. I mean, this woman, you know, played in an orchestra in Germany, played the pipe organ. She, you know, had quite a interesting dating life during the 1940s. And I, you know, I say that she's the most interesting person I ever met because I feel like I met her twice. I met her as my grandmother, and then, you know, as she was ready to move on to another place, I met her as a person.
Wow, that's cool. Bob, what do you think?
Most interesting person?
Yeah. Ashley's raising her hand.
I was going to say Ashley, but I think Ashley's number 2.
Who's number 1? Forrest Houston.
You know, I would probably have to say, honestly, I would probably have to say my drill sergeant when I was in the Army.
Okay, cool.
You know, he was very strict, of course, and very disciplined, and you know, but he had another side of him. Because I was a platoon leader, and then I was a squad leader, and I was a platoon leader. He had another side of him when he got me alone, you know, talking about things that he experienced, because he was in Vietnam, and he did those kind of things. I was in the Army a little late to go to Vietnam, but you know, I mean, I got to learn the different side of him that wasn't, you know, the big tough guy that he was. It was hearing other stories about his family and his life. So.
Colin?
Yes, sir. You know, and strangely enough, now that Bob said that, I will say that, and it's very difficult for me to say that I have one particular favorite person in my life. One of my drill sergeants when I was going through basic was similarly a very interesting character. He was the one that would always stay with us on Sundays because he had marital issues, and those of us that didn't go to church kind of got to hang out with him, and he was an improvised explosives expert. So we got to learn a lot of neat things on those Sunday mornings. But, you know, I'd have to venture to say, really, if I had to pick somebody, most likely one of my 2 grandfathers would be it. And for very different reasons. My dad's dad fought on the Eastern Front, was captured, was on a troop ship that was torpedoed by the Russians, ended up walking out of basically halfway across Russia because he happened to speak Russian. And just a very interesting life story. And then my other grandfather, my mom's dad, just because completely opposite, he was a high-end lawyer also in Central Europe, who was very closely aligned with the royal government prior to the communists coming into power, and then somehow managed to be the only person that I knew that was okay financially under communism. I wouldn't say that he was rich, but he was so respected as a lawyer that he was never a poor person.
Right. He was taking care
What
of
about you, Jim?
You know, my most interesting person actually was a guy that I worked for when I was at the bank, and he was interesting in many respects. Number one, he was a consummate professional, which at the time is something that I admired. He had a great deal. He was very quiet. He was very strong, but he was very quiet and strong. He wasn't one of these. Not to use your drill sergeant, but he wasn't one of these, you know, drill sergeant kind of yell at you and get you to do things. He could get you on the right path in a very quiet but very structured way. And he was a big influence in my life. He really was. Let's turn it to another one. Best restaurant in town ever. Colin.
Well, and that's something also that varies, but right now I'm going to have to go with the Mango Grill, just because I'm really, really yearning for some Indian food. So that's going to be my vote.
Okay, Mango Grill it is, Bob.
Awesome.
I'd have to say if we're talking about ever going to go back to the Airport Inn in its heyday.
The Airport Inn in its heyday.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Ashley?
You know, this is tough because I love our downtown restaurants, and there are so many really fantastic restaurants downtown. But because of today, and because I'm heading there probably after this, the Broadax,
Really?
owned by Bob Fouch. He has taken this long-standing dive that even people 5 generations.
Wait a minute. I used to go there all the time. I didn't think it was a dive.
Exactly. People 900 years ago went to this bar. But I gotta
900
tell you,
years old,
She went
you
like
reach,
that.
look as good you will not.
I gotta tell you, you know, Bob and his brother Kevin have done some amazing things to that place since they took it over. I'd say about 3-4 years ago, and right now they are doing a fundraiser for Bob's son Elon, who's struggling with leukemia. They're doing
Oh,
a
wow.
cash mob to support his treatments and the whole process. And anyone that gets a chance to go to the Broadax on Franklin Street in downtown Hagerstown, go there. Leave a tip for Elon. It's a great place, great beer, great food, and good people.
What about you, Jim?
So, you know, I got to tell you, the 28 South is coming up my list very quickly.
Yes,
I
that was-
really love that
Jay's
place.
great.
Having said that, my all-time favorite has got to be the Schmenkel Stew. I just, you know, the combination of Charlie and Dieter are just unbeatable, in my opinion, at least at present. So that's all the time we have on this subject. I had 2 other questions, but we'll have to save those for next time. Coming up next, the Board of Education is looking at or showing an interest in public negotiations for teacher salaries. Is that a good idea? Stay tuned and find out.